You notice that we're using in the prayers the name Bartholomew, the saint of this day, but in the reading that we have now from the Gospel, we have the name Nathanael. It's the same person. Probably what happened is that the son of Bartholomeus, because Bar is son of, was used also to describe this other person, the same person therefore, who has as his name, now Nathanael means gift of God. Nathan is the root of giving in Hebrew, and El is the root of God. So that would have been, if you like, his first name, and the other one would probably be his family name. That would explain it more or less. He was one of the 12, and he had a rough time. First of all, he was an unexpected candidate for a call. There is a great mystic who lived in the 1800s, Blessed Anne Catherine Emmerich, who saw many things from the Gospels in vision, and she saw this call happening, and apparently what it was, this young man, Nathanael, Bartholomew, was sitting under this fig tree, and there was a dance of young Jewish girls going on just beside him down the road, and he was admiring this, but he was having naughty thoughts. And the Lord doesn't refer directly to his thoughts, but he, as it were, shows that he knows exactly what was in his mind. As it happens, he also indicates, without saying so clearly, that he knew exactly his own reaction, because we have here something pretty close to what actually would have happened. Can you imagine the situation? Between local villages, it's like between football clubs. There's a bit of hostility, banter going on. When he hears about this so-called prophet and asks where he was from, and the answer is from Nazareth, he just says what he thinks. From Nazareth, and any good thing come out of there. So that's probably fairly close to what actually he would have said. He said so and he thought it. And the Lord knows exactly what was in his mind. And so that's how the Lord comes out with, here is an Israelite indeed, in whom there is no, well, guile, no deceit, no hypocrisy. In other words, he says it as he sees it. He's crystal clear, he's honest. Now that can go either way. From this point, we see what happens, that spontaneous honesty comes out straight away, and he goes from that doubt to this great act of faith. You are the King of Israel, the son of David. In other words, this is the prophet Messiah, the promised Messiah, and he gives all and follows him. And of course, that's only the beginning. We know from tradition what happened to him. He had one of the most atrocious deaths of all. He went, according to tradition, as a missionary after the Ascension to the area of Arabia. Now remember, Arabia only later on became Muslim. Here it was still virgin territory. India, and in that he would have had some association probably with St. Thomas, and they called the old Christians of India, which were first evangelized by St. Thomas, the Christians of St. Thomas. They had their own rites. It's a bit more ancient than what we're doing here. And he also went to Armenia, and that's a very ancient form of Christianity. Aram in Hebrew means Syria, and Aramaic is the language the Lord used. It looks like Hebrew, but it's not quite the same. And actually the Lord was speaking Aramaic. And there is still an Armenian rite around in the church, and it's a very ancient language. It goes right back. Now, what happened to him there? It seems that it was in Armenia that he came to a sticky end. And I don't suppose you know what it was, but one of the most awful tortures imaginable was given to him. He was flayed alive. It's what you do to an animal. You peel off his skin, and then he was put in boiling oil without any protection. So that was an awful, awful end. And that's why he's shown, if you ever go to Rome and go to the Sistine Chapel, you can find him there looking down on you. It's in the Last Judgment. You've got these different saints and martyrs, and he's there quite prominently because he's in glory holding his own skin. And that's how he's put here. Some way that's how they show who he is. Each martyr, each saint has his own symbol. In the case of St. Lawrence, who feasted the other day, it was the 10th of August, he had an awful torture himself too. He was roasted alive on a gridiron, like in a barbecue. And after a certain point, he said to the one who was amusing himself, burning him slowly, "You can turn me over now, I'm done on this side." So he died as happy as Larry, as they said, with a great sense of humour, even when he was in atrocious pain. These were the martyrs. So they went with a great oomph into the beyond. And you know, St. Peter himself, he wanted more pain and not less. When it came to his end, because St. Paul had gone also to Rome, he was a Roman citizen, because he belonged to a town which was under Roman citizenship, Tarsus, a university town. He was not allowed to be crucified because he had that privilege as a Roman citizen. So he was beheaded, and where his head fell, 3 fountains bounced up. Tre fontane in Italian, 3 fountains. It's there in Rome. There's a mountain monastery there now. And a lady, a few years ago, appeared there. Do you know what happened? There was somebody about to assassinate the Pope. It was Bruno. He'd become an extreme Protestant. He was actually a Seventh-day Adventist or something. And he was going to kill the Pope, and he had this dagger, and he'd written on it, in Italian, "Death to the Pope, Morte al Papa." And he was preparing a talk against the Catholic Church, against Our Lady, and he was there in Tre Fontane, and his children were playing ball while he was preparing this, in the siesta hours. And suddenly he heard a cry. He'd lost his children. Where on earth they were, they were gone to see, look for the ball they'd lost. So he went to look for them, and he found them looking like this. And he tried to talk to them, get through to them, couldn't budge them. And then he saw what they were seeing, because they were saying, "Belladonna, Belladonna, beautiful lady, beautiful lady." They were seeing Our Lady, they were Protestants. And he then saw her himself, and she told him the truth. She explained to him in a message which he could remember word for word. It was quite long, it was a whole teaching. The Catholic Church was the true church, and the Pope was the vicar of Christ. And she gave him, in the one vision, she gave him all the truth. And later on, he found himself before the Pope, who was Pius XII in that time. And at the end of the little meeting, they were invited, if anyone had something to say to the Pope personally, now was the time. And he got up and went up to the Pope with his dagger and showed him this on it, "Death to the Pope. Most Holy Father, that was meant for you." And he explained what happened. And that explains why, very quickly, that apparition in Tre Fontane was approved. Very quickly. It was the real thing. It's now a shrine in Rome. It's a very famous shrine now. But for the Romans themselves, more than anyone else, they go there a lot. They have processions and things. So that was his end, and this is Bartholomew, Nathanael. Now, I just want to zoom into one thing. Why? There were 12 apostles. They could have all had a glorious ending. Oh yes, I forgot to finish. St. Peter wasn't beheaded, he was crucified, fulfilling the prophecy of the Saviour himself. When you're grown up, you will extend your hand and someone else will carry you where you would rather not go. That was his Calvary. But he said, according to tradition, "I'm not worthy to die as my Saviour. Put me that way around." And so he chose to be crucified upside down. So that's what, and I've been in the place, it's not in the Vatican, he's buried in the Vatican, but his actual place of martyrdom was somewhere else in Rome, which I know. It's not well known, but it is there, definitely. And underneath, you've got the dungeon where he was the night before. It's awful, awful. So that was the end of Peter. So all that to say that this was the glorious end of these wonderful, wonderful 11, but there was one who didn't make it, and could have made it had he been faithful to the same grace. And actually, to go back where I started, that person who saw these things in her visions, she saw the time when Jesus first met the other one, Judas. And it was as though when he first saw him, there was a shudder went right through his person, and he could see ahead. He can go this way, like the others, or that way. Do you know the problem with Judas? He was, it seems, getting into a good act, because you see, at the beginning, he had great followers, Jesus, and he seemed to be the one to follow. And so, he had ambition, and he, it would seem, presented himself. not like the others who were called. So ambition was his own undoing. The Lord took him on, but was aware this could go either way. And it's the same with us. All you lovely people, you've just got the beginning of your life, most of you. It's all yet to be played. But remember, it can go this way